Melissa Gilbert has been a familiar and trusted face to television audiences for decades, best known for her role as Laura Ingalls on the beloved series Little House on the Prairie. For many viewers, she represented warmth, innocence, and strong family values, growing up on screen in a way that felt deeply personal to millions of fans. Born Melissa Ellen Gilbert on May 8, 1964, in Los Angeles, California, her life seemed destined for the entertainment world almost from the beginning. Adopted shortly after birth by actor and comedian Paul Gilbert and his wife Barbara Crane, a former dancer and actress, Melissa was raised in a household shaped by creativity, performance, and storytelling. From an early age, she showed a natural comfort in front of the camera, appearing in television commercials and guest roles while still very young. Even then, there was something sincere about her performances, a quiet emotional honesty that made her stand out from other child actors of time. Her life changed forever in 1974 when, at just 9 years old, she was cast as Laura Ingalls in Little House on the Prairie. Based on the books by Laura Ingalls Wilder, the series became one of the most influential family television shows in American history. Week after week, audiences watched Laura's journey from a curious frontier child into a thoughtful young woman. And in many ways, they watched Melissa Gilbert grow up alongside the character. The role required emotional strength far beyond her years, as the show explored serious themes such as poverty, illness, loss, prejudice, faith, and moral responsibility. Melissa handled these challenges with remarkable maturity, delivering performances that continue to resonate decades later. Her close working relationship with Michael Landon, who played her on-screen father and served as the show's creative leader, had a lasting impact on her life. Landon became a mentor, teaching her discipline, compassion, and the power of storytelling, values that would stay with her long after the cameras stopped rolling. When Little House on the Prairie ended in 1983, Melissa Gilbert faced a challenge common to many child stars: how to grow beyond a role that had defined her for nearly a decade. Transitioning into adult roles was not easy, but she approached the task with determination. She took on television movies, stage roles, and dramatic performances that allowed her to explore deeper and more complex characters. One of her most notable performances came when she portrayed Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker, a role that further demonstrated her emotional depth and commitment to meaningful storytelling. Theater also became an important outlet for her, offering creative freedom and helping her step away from the wholesome image many viewers still associate with her childhood role. Behind the scenes, however, Melissa's life was not without struggle. Growing up in the public eye came with intense pressure, and she has spoken openly in later years about difficult family relationships, personal insecurities, and battles with addiction. Rather than hiding these experiences, she eventually chose to speak honestly about them, believing that truth and openness were essential to healing. This willingness to share her vulnerabilities helped reshape her public image, showing her not as a perfect former child star, but as a real person who had faced hardship and learned from it. Over time, Melissa Gilbert became known not only for her acting, but also for her courage in confronting painful truths. That reputation for honesty and integrity is what made recent developments in her private life so shocking to many of her longtime supporters, setting the stage for one of the most difficult chapters she has ever faced. As Melissa Gilbert moved further into adulthood, her life continued to unfold under the watchful eye of the public, especially when it came to her personal relationships. Like many young actors who grow up in Hollywood, her teenage years were shaped by fame, attention, and a lack of privacy that most people never experience. During this period, Gilbert became involved in highly publicized young romances that attracted widespread interest from fans and entertainment media alike. Among those relationships were brief but memorable connections with two future Hollywood stars, Tom Cruise and Rob Lowe. At the time, all were young performers navigating early fame, ambition, and emotional discovery. Though these relationships were short-lived, they became part of pop culture memory and offered Gilbert early lessons about love, heartbreak, and the challenges of dating while living in the spotlight by the late 1980s. Melissa Gilbert was searching for stability and a sense of normal life after years spent growing up on television sets rather than in traditional family environments. On February 22, 1988, she married actor and producer Bo Brinkman, marking her first step into marriage and family life. The union represented a desire for grounding and emotional security, something Gilbert had long sought after a childhood shaped by professional responsibility at a very young age. The couple welcomed a son, Dakota Paul Brinkman, an experience that deeply changed her priorities. Motherhood quickly became one of the most important roles of her life, offering her a sense of purpose and emotional grounding that fame had never fully provided. She has often spoken about how becoming a mother helped shift her focus away from public approval and toward personal fulfillment. Despite their shared hopes, Gilbert's marriage to Brinkman faced growing challenges. Balancing careers, personal growth, and family life proved difficult, and by 1992, the couple decided to divorce. Though the separation was emotionally painful, Gilbert remained committed to co-parenting and providing a stable, loving environment for her son. Rather than retreating from public life, she continued working while learning to navigate the realities of adulthood, relationships, and responsibility. Her experiences during this time reinforced a pattern that would repeat throughout her life, a willingness to confront hardship honestly rather than deny or hide it. Seeking love again, Gilbert married actor Bruce Boxleitner on January 1st, 1995. The relationship appeared to offer a fresh start, built on shared professional experience and mutual respect. Later that same year, the couple welcomed a son, Michael, whose name held deep personal meaning for Gilbert. Naming her child after Michael Landon was a powerful tribute to the mentor who had shaped her childhood, career, and values. Landon's influence extended far beyond their on-screen relationship, and honoring him in this way reflected the lasting emotional bond they shared. For a time, Gilbert and Boxleitner appeared to have built a blended family rooted in affection, shared responsibility, and emotional understanding. However, as the years passed, the pressures of balancing careers, parenting, and personal growth again took their toll. Over time, differences emerged that could not be reconciled, and in 2011, Gilbert filed for divorce. The end of the marriage marked another deeply personal turning point, one that she later discussed openly. Rather than expressing bitterness, she spoke about lessons learned, emotional growth, and the importance of honesty with oneself. Her ability to reflect on failed relationships without blame or resentment further shaped her public image as someone committed to personal accountability and emotional truth. In 2013, Melissa Gilbert found love once more when she married actor and director Timothy Busfield. Their relationship appeared quieter and more grounded than her previous marriages, shaped by maturity and shared life experience rather than idealized expectations. The couple held a small, private wedding in Santa Barbara, California, emphasizing intimacy and personal meaning over public spectacle. Both had been married before and brought children into relationship, creating a blended family built on understanding rather than illusion. For many fans, this chapter seemed to represent peace and stability after decades of emotional highs and lows. Few could have imagined that years later, this same relationship would become the center of intense public scrutiny, forcing Gilbert to confront a situation that would challenge her values, her sense of trust, and her deeply held beliefs about accountability and justice. For several years, Melissa Gilbert's life with Timothy Busfield appeared calm and settled, especially compared to the emotional turbulence of her earlier decades in Hollywood. After a lifetime spent under constant public attention, she seemed to have found a quieter rhythm rooted in family, personal reflection, and a more private sense of happiness. The couple often spoke about the importance of honesty, mutual respect, and emotional maturity, values shaped by years of individual struggles and hard-earned lessons. Gilbert, in particular, had become increasingly vocal about accountability, personal growth, and protecting vulnerable people, themes that also appeared in her memoirs and public statements. To longtime fans, her life seemed to reflect the same strength and moral clarity she had once portrayed on screen. That image, carefully built over decades, was deeply shaken in early 2026 when reports began to surface that thrust her private life into the center of national attention. In mid-January, U.S. media outlets reported that a warrant had been issued in New Mexico for the arrest of Timothy Busfield. According to law enforcement statements, Busfield was accused of sexually assaulting twin boys during production of the television series The Cleaning Lady. The allegations claim that the abuse occurred over an extended period, reportedly between November 2022 and early 2024. The seriousness of the accusations and the length of time involved immediately raised alarm, not only because of the nature of the claims, but also because they allegedly took place within a professional setting tied to the entertainment industry. Authorities stated that Busfield faced multiple charges, including sexual abuse involving a minor and child abuse, and that the warrant had been issued by the Albuquerque Police Department. The news sent shockwaves to the public and the entertainment world, but for Melissa Gilbert, the situation carried a far deeper and more personal weight. She was suddenly confronted with allegations that struck directly at the heart of her values as a mother, advocate, and survivor of early fame. In a public statement attributed to her, Gilbert acknowledged the emotional devastation of the situation, describing herself as shocked and heartbroken. At the same time, she stressed the importance of due process, carefully reminding the public that allegations are not conclusions and that the legal system must be allowed to function properly. Her words reflected a careful balance between emotional pain and a firm commitment to fairness, a stance that drew both sympathy and scrutiny as details continued to emerge. Reports indicated that the investigation had begun months earlier, after a doctor at the University of New Mexico reported the alleged abuse in November 2024. The inquiry unfolded quietly before becoming public, allowing law enforcement to gather information before issuing the warrant. Busfield's legal representatives strongly denied the accusations, describing them as false and claiming they were motivated by resentment following the dismissal of the child actors from production. These competing narratives quickly fueled intense media speculation, placing Gilbert in an impossible position. She was neither an investigator nor a judge, yet her public identity made her an unavoidable part of the story. In response, she emphasized that she could not claim to know all the facts and that the situation was painful for everyone involved. The professional consequences of the allegations were swift. NBC announced that it would not air an episode of Law and Order, Special Victims Unit, in which Busfield appeared, citing sensitivity to the subject matter. The decision drew attention for its symbolic weight, given the nature of the show itself. Around the same time, reports emerged that authorities had been unable to locate Busfield immediately after the warrant was issued, prompting the U.S. Marshals Service to assist in the search. Media coverage intensified, with questions not only about Busfield's whereabouts, but also about Gilbert's knowledge, role, and emotional state. Addressing these rumors directly, she stated that she had fully cooperated with authorities and had no intention of interfering with the legal process. When Busfield later turned himself in, the story entered a new phase, but for Gilbert, it did not bring relief. Instead, it marked the beginning of a painful and uncertain journey, one that would test her resilience, her public image, and her ability to face the unknown with honesty and restraint. As the legal situation involving Timothy Busfield continued to unfold, Melissa Gilbert found herself navigating one of the most painful and complex moments of her life, both as a public figure and as a private individual. For decades, she had been known for her openness and emotional honesty, yet this moment demanded a different kind of strength, one rooted in restraint, caution, and respect for a legal process that was still ongoing. Rather than responding with anger or dramatic public statements, Gilbert chose her words carefully, aware that every sentence would be examined, debated, and often misinterpreted. In confirming that the rumors surrounding her private life were real, she did not sensationalize the situation or attempt to control the narrative. Instead, she acknowledged the reality of the allegations while firmly separating accusation from truth, emphasizing that justice must be determined by evidence and law, not public opinion. This approach was not easy, especially given the intense media attention surrounding the case. Headlines often reduced the situation to simplified narratives, placing pressure on Gilbert to either defend her husband or publicly distance herself from him. Yet she resisted both extremes. In multiple statements, she made it clear that she was devastated by the situation, but equally committed to accountability. She spoke openly about the emotional confusion of loving someone while being confronted with deeply disturbing allegations, a position that many people struggle to understand unless they have lived through it themselves. Her words reflected the reality that life does not always present clear moral choices, and that sometimes the hardest path is acknowledging uncertainty while refusing to abandon one's principles. Public reaction to Gilbert's response was mixed. Many longtime fans expressed sympathy, praising her for handling the situation with dignity and compassion. Others questioned her decisions, wondering how much she knew or whether she should have spoken out more forcefully. Social media amplified these debates, often blurring the line between concern and judgment. Throughout it all, Gilbert maintained that she would not interfere with the investigation, and that her priority remained the well-being of those affected, particularly the alleged victims. By consistently expressing concern for children's safety and the importance of truth, she reinforced a message that accountability must come before personal comfort at the same time. The situation forced a reevaluation of Gilbert's public image, one that had long been shaped by nostalgia and moral clarity. For many fans, she would always be Laura Ingalls, the symbol of innocence and resilience from Little House on the Prairie. But this moment revealed a more complex reality, a woman confronting painful circumstances without the comfort of certainty or resolution. In doing so, she challenged the expectation that public figures must always provide clear answers or emotional performances. Instead, she modeled a quieter form of courage, one based on patience, empathy, and a willingness to sit with discomfort rather than escape it. The controversy also highlighted a broader issue within the entertainment industry, particularly the vulnerability of children working in professional environments. While the legal process continued, conversations intensified about safeguarding young performers and ensuring accountability for those in positions of authority. Gilbert's long history of advocacy for actors' rights and child welfare gave additional weight to the situation, making it not just a personal crisis, but a moment that resonated far beyond her own life. Her past work as president of the Screen Actors Guild, where she fought for performer protections, stood in stark contrast to the allegations now surrounding her family, underscoring the painful irony of the circumstances as the public waited for further developments. Melissa Gilbert continued to ask for privacy and restraint, reminding audiences that real people were affected by the unfolding events. She made it clear that confirming the existence of the rumors did not mean offering judgment or conclusions. Instead, it was an acknowledgement of reality, one that required patience, empathy, and respect for truth. In choosing this path, Gilbert demonstrated that sometimes the most honest response is not certainty, but integrity, an unwavering commitment to doing what is right. Even when the outcome remains unknown, as weeks passed and the legal process moved forward, Melissa Gilbert's response continued to reflect a careful balance between personal pain and public responsibility. She did not disappear from view, nor did she seek attention. Instead, she remained measured, choosing silence when speculation grew loud and speaking only when clarity was needed. For someone who had spent nearly her entire life in the public eye, this restraint was both deliberate and revealing. Gilbert understood better than most how quickly public narratives can harden into judgments, and she refused to contribute to that cycle. Her decision to avoid dramatic statements or emotional displays was not a sign of indifference, but rather an effort to protect the integrity of a process that had real consequences for real people and confirming the rumors surrounding her private life. Gilbert made it clear that confirmation did not equal endorsement, denial, or conclusion. She emphasized that she was navigating the situation as a wife, a mother, and a human being, not as a legal authority. This distinction was crucial, yet often overlooked by commentators eager for simple answers. Gilbert's words reflected the painful reality that individuals connected to serious allegations are often forced to carry a burden they did not create. Her experience highlighted how quickly the lives of family members can be reshaped by accusations, even before facts are fully established. In this sense, her story became not just about a celebrity scandal, but about the emotional fallout that accompanies public controversy. Throughout this period, Gilbert consistently expressed concern for the alleged victims, stating that if children had been harmed, they deserve protection, compassion, and truth above all else. By doing so, she refused to center the narrative solely on her own suffering, instead acknowledging the broader human stakes involved. This approach resonated with some observers who saw in her response a rare example of empathy without presumption. Others, however, remained critical, arguing that public figures should take stronger stances. The divided response revealed a deeper cultural tension around how society expects individuals to behave when accusations surface, especially when those individuals are well-known and emotionally connected to the accused. The situation also forced Gilbert to confront the fragility of public trust. For decades, her image had been associated with moral strength, honesty, and emotional clarity. Now, she faced a moment that offered no clear resolution, only uncertainty. Rather than attempting to preserve an idealized version of herself, she allowed that uncertainty to exist openly. In doing so, she reminded audiences that public figures are not immune to confusion, doubt, or grief. Her willingness to exist in that uncomfortable space challenged the expectation that celebrities must always present certainty, even when reality provides none. Beyond the personal and emotional toll, the controversy renewed conversations about accountability within the entertainment industry. Questions arose about safeguarding children on set, reporting mechanisms, and the responsibilities of adults working in positions of authority. Gilbert's long history of advocacy for performers' rights gave her a unique and painful perspective on these issues. Having once fought for protections within the industry, she now found herself personally entangled in a situation that underscored why such protections matter. The contrast was difficult, but also reinforced the importance of continued vigilance and reform as the story continued to develop. Melissa Gilbert asked for empathy, not sympathy, and for patience rather than judgment. She acknowledged that the truth would emerge only through careful investigation and legal examination, not through headlines or online debate. In confirming the rumors about her private life, she did not seek to control the outcome or shape public opinion. Instead, she chose honesty without spectacle, restraint without denial, and compassion without assumption. In a culture often driven by outrage and instant conclusions, her response stood as a reminder that some situations demand humility and patience above all else. As the situation surrounding Timothy Busfield continued to move through the legal system, Melissa Gilbert's experience became a powerful example of how public and private lives can collide in painful and unexpected ways. For someone who had spent decades advocating for truth, fairness, and accountability, the moment was deeply unsettling. She was not only facing the emotional strain of a personal crisis, but also the intense pressure of public scrutiny that left little room for quiet reflection. Every appearance, every statement, and even every silence was analyzed and debated, often without regard for the human cost behind the headlines. Yet through it all, Gilbert remained consistent in her message that justice must be guided by facts, compassion, and due process, not speculation or emotion alone. The controversy forced many to reconsider the way society consumes stories involving allegations and public figures. In an era dominated by rapid news cycles and social media reactions, the line between information and judgment often becomes blurred. Gilbert's measured response stood in contrast to the surrounding noise, offering a reminder that restraint can be a form of strength rather than avoidance. By refusing to reduce a complex and painful situation into a simple narrative, she highlighted the importance of allowing truth to emerge naturally, even when that process is slow and uncomfortable. Her approach challenged the expectation that public figures must always offer definitive answers, even when none are yet available.